Buffalo Bills Football Monday, chatting about the game, the season, the way forward with you. It's brought to you by Northwest Bank. For what's next, get started at northwest.com. Jeremy White, Sneaky Joe DiBiase, Owen Parker, the Parlay Killers here. Alt Joe's here as well as our producer, Sal Capaccio, joining us on the Wester Hotline. Sal, good morning. How are you?
Still processing. Good morning to you guys.
You know, Sal,
still thinking about everything that happened.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm thinking of, you know what game this strikes me as a lot like today? And it's not exactly like a perfect comparison, but it's the Houston playoff game where so many things happened that you kind of get your pick. There's a buffet of what do you want, and there's an official that got involved, and we're like, wait a minute, that seems like that didn't go the right way. And at the end of it, you're like, I want to watch a game again and see how many times I feel like they could have, should have won it. Sure, there were mistakes. Josh is going crazy, but at the same time, Josh is amazing. So I don't know. There's a ton to get to, and we mentioned earlier to open the show last night. There's a Devontae Adams catch and fumble / interception that looked a lot like the Brandon Cooks play. So whatever. Bills fans are left frustrated, perhaps, with the inconsistencies of the NFL today.
I think that's where a lot of people lie. It's certainly some of mine. A lot of my media colleagues who I've talked to, I've read, write things about this, which is, the inconsistencies of when to review, when not to review, why they didn't review, the call on the field that you saw yesterday. There was a one in the Texans game. There was one last night versus what we saw on Saturday with the Bills. I think a lot of that is just all baked into why people are frustrated. You could focus in on one little thing, and was his knee down? Why wasn't it called this way in the field? The pass interference. You could focus in on the big picture. Why is there so much inconsistency? What is reviewed? What isn't? Why? All those kinds of things. Look, at the end of the day, the Bills turned the ball over 5 times, and they shouldn't have put themselves in that position, and they did. They should never leave it up to the officials. Put it in their hands. It shouldn't have not have been, and they shouldn't have been in that position in the first place if they would have taken care of the football. I think we all recognize that. It's also okay to recognize that there were some inconsistencies and questions that maybe should have gone the other way. But I don't think they played well enough to win that game without having all that happen. You know what I mean? And then because that all happened, you're leaving it to chance, and that's just always going to put you in a bad spot.
Yeah. So, so many things to pick apart. So, the timeline on kind of McDermott in all of this, because in the press conference – I think he said it, like he thought it was a catch, but then he spent a lot of that time really going over, the process of it more so than the play itself. And then this pool report happens, right? And when does that happen? Because that's when it was much more, I feel like, about the play itself.
Okay, yeah, so real quick, let me just explain to everybody. People are probably hearing and not knowing what pool report means and things like that. So we do not interview officials after games. Nobody does, right? In any sport, you don't interview officials. But when there is a really big controversial ending, play, something like that, what happens is you want to get answers of why something was looked at a certain way. So instead of putting 100 mics in front of an official, putting them at a podium, one person in every city, this is football I'm just speaking of, I can't talk about other sports, one person in every city, in every for every team, is responsible for putting together an interview with the official, just asking the basic questions. Why did you call this? What did you see? That person in Denver is Jeff Legwold. He covers the Broncos. Because it's a home game for the Broncos, he would be responsible. But what happens is here in Buffalo, our Pro Football Writers Association president, Joe Biscaglia, and vice president, Jay Skursky, are pretty much responsible for saying, okay, we would like to have this because we need to find out from the Buffalo side of things. So you put in a request, they go do that. That person then distributes it to the pool of reporters. That's why it's called a pool report, so that we could all have it and we can all distribute it. So Legwold does this. Okay. Carl Cheffers explains what he saw, what he didn't see. All right. To me, the pool report from Carl Cheffers is fine. He's not the one that's really in question here. The question is why it wasn't reviewed from New York. Carl Cheffers has nothing to do with that. And Sean McDermott, now to get to what you said, Joe, he even said that. He's like, those guys were great on the field. Like, I'm trying to get his attention to say, why are they not reviewing it in New York, right? So that's up to them. You go into the press conference. Sean McDermott says what he says. He's very passionate. I'm standing up for Buffalo, all those kinds of things that he says. That's done. About an hour and a half later, Jay Skursky he lets us know in the Buffalo media that Sean had individually called him to expand to, and Jay made that another pool report, if you will, because it's not just I'm just talking to Jay Skursky. It's I don't have a microphone in front of me for the whole Buffalo media, and now Sean wants more to say, so that becomes more of a distributed to the pool of reporters, and that's where you got the long, lengthy conversation there.
Okay. And McDermott calling a media member to say, like, hey, I want more. That is not something that often happens. Has that ever happened to your memory?
I can't say in a situation like this. I mean, I could tell you that, like, coaches or people in the organization, any organization, have maybe done that, but maybe not to this magnitude as a pool report. It could have been more of a, like, one-on-one, I just have something to say, I want to put it out there, things like that. So, no, I can't, to answer your question, Jeremy, I can't remember anything like this happening to this degree.
Gotcha. And the reason he did sell is because he was pretty strong about his feelings, right? Like, he's not calling, Jay if he thinks it's like a ticky-tack call. Like, he was pretty aggressive, like he thought it was a catch.
Correct. There's two reasons why he'd do it. Number one, because he's very passionate and he's upset, and that's exactly right. But number two is we're well past the time on the way or to the airport, and I have more to say. I don't have the media in front of me, so I'm going to give this to the person who basically is in charge of that for the media for Buffalo.
All right. So, Sal, he says, I'm out here defending Buffalo. The Bills watch that call go the wrong way, and like whatever. We've all lived our lives watching football and seeing calls we don't agree with. And, you get to, well, what could have happened in the game that made it so that call didn't happen? And the Bills have a lot of that. The Bills have a lot of what if from both the offense and the defense, the turnovers, the mistakes. Ultimately they fall in Denver. What do you come out of the game thinking about in terms of whether it's the roster, it's the decisions they made? What's the story beyond officiating that's at the top of the headline?
I don't know. It's tough to say. I guess all of that is baked in, right? Which is, I think about Josh Allen. I think about the fact that he was so amazing this year once again. And then in this game, he's made some incredible plays, but we also got Josh Allen not playing his best football at times, and that cost the Bills. But, we've talked so much this year about how the Bills are not really reliant on Josh, right? They have this great run game and James Cook, and I've said that. And he didn't have an MVP year, but yet they still did what they did all year. But if Josh makes mistakes like that and turns the ball over, that is very, very critical. And what did I say to you guys many times over the last few weeks? The difference between this Bills team and several teams in the past is they can't overcome those mistakes anymore. Like the margin for error for this team is so much more thin than it has been over the last several years. So even though they came back and scored, they put themselves in such a tough position by those turnovers. Now there were just way too many turnovers. This wasn't even 2 turnovers. This is 5 turnovers in a game, right? So I mean that's even going well beyond the extreme. But I think that's what I think about is I don't know if it's roster construction. I mean, that's certainly a big picture. And I understand why everybody's talking about it. But I don't come out of this game thinking that necessarily. What I come out of this game thinking, the roster obviously isn't to the point of, and that could be a lot of things. That's roster construction, that's injuries, that's everything, that they just have not been able to overcome these mistakes this year. In every game, when the Bills lost the turnover battle, they lost games this year. And too often they did that on the road.
Yeah, sloppy. There was a play in this game where I was reminded of their road woes where they maybe run in the red zone and Cook kind of goes nowhere, and Allen turns to the sideline and signals like a, come on, let's go. Like the play calls were coming in late again, which had been something that they'd been dealing with all year.
Yeah, and I think early on he had to switch his helmet once too because of communication, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But yeah, sure. I mean, it's just playing on the road is more difficult and communication-wise for the offense. And there were some issues that came up in this game like that, but they still had many, many, many opportunities to win this game and did not close out the game. And I don't know. You could go to – this is the thing we do. We did it last year too. Blame the offense, blame the defense. You don't have to blame one side. Every side is culpable in some way, shape, or form. The offense, yes, scored 30 points. They also turned the ball over 5 times. I mean, when you don't punt in a game, did the Bills punt? I don't think the Bills punted in the game, right?
They did not punt.
When you don't punt and you have they were over 50% on third down or 50%. Like the numbers, great numbers. And they lost because they kept turning the ball over. And then you could have somebody say, well, there it goes. McDermott's defense again, 33 points allowed in a playoff game, fourth quarter blown lead. That's true. They also had to have major stops because the offense kept giving the ball to the Denver Broncos. So it's never one side to blame necessarily. I mean, this wasn't a blowout. This was a game where a lot of different things can fall on a lot of different players or coaches or moments.
Yeah, that's what like this might come off, Sal, as like total like protective of McDermott excuse making, but like I look at that game and think, how many points did his starting defense really give up? Because his offense gave up 6 points between the two fumbles at the end of the first half and the end of the second half, right? And he got 14 points given up on 2 plays played by Darnell Savage and Dane Jackson. Like when he had all his guys in there, it wasn't that bad. I don't think they were dominant, but you were getting mistakes from players that you never probably wanted in the game, and then your offense gave them 6 points.
Dane Jackson played 1 snap.
Right, and did Savage play 3? Like, I don't think he played much other than the one he gave up.
Yeah, and I know, right? I heard it all yesterday. People calling in. Why was Sean Payton so smart to attack the guy who just came in and the Bills weren't? The Bills did. Remember when Surtain went out? Bills went right after his replacement. Yeah. They got a nice pass over the middle. They did that. Like, yes, they did. They didn't score a touchdown, and that's why people don't think of it. But, yeah, the depth on this roster hurt them this year. There's no doubt. And that's where you get to roster construction. That's where you get to injuries. If Max Harrison is healthy, there's not Dane Jackson in there, right?
Right.
And we can go back to, well, what happened in Week 18? Why was Max Harrison playing? All these things get totally baked into this. The decision to not play Jordan Hancock back there because last week he just did not look good. I was surprised Savage went in before Jordan Hancock. Right?
Yeah.
But they decided to put Savage in there instead of Jordan Hancock. And that's because Cam Lewis was cramping, so he went out of the game. You have the play at the end of the half. Look, we also do a lot of cherry picking here. Play at the end of the half, 16 seconds. I'm thinking, okay, they're probably going to kneel. And then I thought, well, hey, you have Josh Allen. If you get one play, maybe something will happen. I mean, 2 years ago,
Philly.
In the rain with 20 seconds left, Bills fans lost their collective minds because Sean McDermott decided to kneel on it.
No, right. Yeah, did you how did you think about that right after it happened? Because I saw, Sal, that James Cook was kind of open on the sideline, like at the 50-yard line, which I think is who the play was designed for. And I don't know, if I'm McDermott, I'm trusting my superstar quarterback to either try to fire that throw in, or if you don't think it's there, don't do what you did.
Probably right.
Yeah.
Sean said after the game, hey, we're trying to get one chunk play, and if we do that, maybe we can stop the clock and have a chance for a field goal or a touchdown or something like that. But that's what they're trying to do. So again, you can't cherry pick here. Right. If you did you think that they should have? Did you get mad when they did that against Philly and took a knee in the rain? I know it's not a playoff game, and that was to go to overtime. There are different circumstances here, but we can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on McDermott for going for calling a play there, then you're never willing to criticize Josh Allen. Like, you got to know. Come on, just don't do that. Even if he threw it 40 yards downfield and got picked, that would be all right. Fine, you took a shot. Now they have 4 seconds for a Hail Mary or something.
Or even just tuck the ball. Right. Like just even on the simplest
just get
level.
Tackled. Yeah. All right. Sal, in terms of how this might go this week. Last year, we heard from McDermott and being midweek.
Thursday after a Sunday loss, yeah. Okay. So, it doesn't have to be on the same timeline. I was down there yesterday and talked to a lot of players in the locker room. By the way, just so everybody knows, too, I mean, just to give the scene of Saturday, it was the most emotional locker room I've ever seen.
So
I've ever been in after a game.
Let me ask you a theory on that. Why would that be, do you think? I mean, it's a devastating loss. They lost in the AFC Championship game in devastating fashion. They lose at home to the Chiefs. And is it because it wasn't the Chiefs? It's somebody new and maybe this hits in a different way? Like, what's the best explanation for why it was so emotional?
Yeah, I think because they were so close. They tied the game up. They went to overtime. The manner in which they lost, the frustration of the manner in which they lost, knowing that this might have been their best chance, given the field and what it looks like right now, knowing that, they've been down this road before and once again this happens to them. You look around the roster, there's older players, you're not going to play with some of the guys that are on the team anymore. I mean, I think all of that is part of it, but in the moment, and it's not like you got beat by 20 and you weren't in it. When you're that close and you're right there, and then the gravity of just the finality of the moment just comes so sudden like that. I think that's pretty much what it was. I mean, I saw guys really emotional walking off the field from the handshake and all that. I mean, it was right away. It was, oh my God, like the emotions started pouring in.
Yeah.
I wondered too, like maybe that wasn't for everybody. Like when Dawkins got emotional and even Allen after the game, like what's new is that you can debate or talk about whether Allen let them down in that game. Like you couldn't really do that with many of these other playoff games. It was his first multiple turnover game in any of their playoff losses. So maybe that had something to do with it, Sal, that like Allen was more a part of the reason they lost than he really ever has been.
I don't think anybody's emotional because of that. I think they're all in their own.
That's why Dawkins was,
way,
right? Because Dawkins got asked the question.
Dawkins was. You mean, yeah, he was emotional for Josh in that moment. Yeah, I mean, he was already emotional, but he was asked specifically, hey, what do you think about Josh saying I let my teammates down? And then he didn't want any part of that. Yeah. He didn't want any part of that. He's like, no.
Dude, one other like quick strategy thing, Sal. How much do you think, we talked about this for like a second earlier, Dorian Williams going out on the first play of the game might have meant something to their defense?
Oh, I think it meant a lot. I mean, he is a guy that they rely on as a blitzer on third down sometimes. He comes in and Bale Inspector to come in. And I mean, there was you want to talk about coaching blunder, player blunder. I don't know who to put this on as much, but because it goes either way. But you can't have Bale Inspector goes out on the field coming out of a timeout. The Bills had to take a timeout because I don't know if you guys remember the play. It was I think right before half maybe. Coming out of a timeout, the Bills had to burn a timeout because Spector ran on the field. They had too many guys. They were confused on who should be out there. And those are the little things that happen when you have to dip into your depth when a guy goes out early in the game. And I do think that mattered a little bit.
Right. Aaron Cromer retiring, Sal. It's a big loss for them. And, do you feel like the offense could see big changes this year? Not personnel-wise, but like would you expect Joe Brady to be back whether or not he gets another job? We know he's interviewed with Baltimore and Miami most recently.
I think it's up in the air. I really do. I could see the Bills making a change there. I just think that a lot of things that McDermott has said, the way that things have pointed over the last, couple of months, it feels like, there's just been some subtleties that have been said and hinted at that maybe, that they would have an appetite for a change there. Without Aaron Cromer, though, I will tell you, I think that hurts Joe Brady because Aaron Cromer is so good in the run game and helps Joe Brady a lot. You're going to have that's a tough loss. I don't care who your OC is. As an offensive line coach, Aaron Cromer is terrific and one of the best in the business. And everybody who plays in that offensive line, guys who played for him, Eric Wood, they'll always rave about him, how great he has been for them as a coach. I do wonder if Austin Gunn gets a really serious look at that. I will tell you that even in the locker room yesterday, talking with some offensive linemen, they very much endorse Austin Gunn, the assistant offensive line coach, to take that role. So we'll see where it goes. But I do think there's a lot of conversations to be had about offensive coordinator. And I mean, we haven't talked about defensive coordinator. I think Bobby Babich has been with McDermott a long time. He's still a young coach, and it would surprise me, if Sean moved on from him, if that were to be the change. But in this league, does anything ever surprise anybody when changes are made?
Yeah. Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline. Sal, thanks very much. You're coming up today. Extra Point Show, 10 o'clock.
I'll be there, guys. Yeah.
All right. North Town Automotive Extra Point Show, 10 o'clock. Thanks, Sal.